going good, and then we will be able to hit record. And just like that. All right. I'll play a short intro and then we'll jump into it. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tapping into some Untapped Keg, our podcast about sobriety, mental health, spotlighting stories that bring us hope and love. We are on all podcast platforms. Look us up, Untapped Keg everywhere, all social media. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review. We could really use that 5-star rating. Share it with your friends. I am one of your hosts, RJ Zimmerman, and I'm here with my good friend, Monte Ball. How you doing, big guy?
Good, man. Good. Doing well. Feeling good. I'm loving the weather. Gearing up, obviously, for this transition I got coming up. But I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward to all that we have. And before we get to our guest, of course, RJ, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. Hanging in there. Heart's pretty heavy. Today goes our, everything that we can going out to Buffalo, and all the families involved there, for another time. So today we're excited to hear the story and learn about this amazing community. We have the pastor, founder, executive director of the Free Spiritual Community in Colorado. Very excited to welcome Ryan Canaday. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be with you.
Good, man. Good. I see the shirt already. I see the logo on that bad boy. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the logo. But man, we're excited to have you, man. And obviously you and I have been talking for 7-8 months, possibly somewhere.
Way back.
Right? I think, yeah, probably longer than that, actually. But I've had the opportunity, obviously, of learning about what your initiatives are, what you've been doing, your passions and everything. But we're really excited to hear for you to share it here with our listeners and stuff. So we'll just go ahead and just dive right into it, man. I mean, so share with us, obviously, who you are, what it is you do, and we'll get into, obviously, why you came about hopping on this journey.
Yeah. So like RJ said, I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor, founder, executive director of Free Spiritual Community in Denver. And, we are a community. We're a pretty new community. We actually started in our backyard almost 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years this June. And we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and what we call spiritual refugees. Those are people who feel like they've been kicked around by religion. They've been told somewhere along the way by some religious narrative or religious leaders that they don't belong, they don't act right, they don't behave right, they don't talk right, and so they don't belong with the God stuff. So we try to create space for our spiritual refugees. And, our mission at Free is to break the silence of addiction, because we have this addiction crisis, not just in Colorado, but I know you guys experience it too. And, my little backstory is I've been sober now for just over 9 years, but part of my story is I was a drunk pastor. Yeah, thank you for that, RJ. So I was telling RJ earlier, I don't have the sexy story of getting sober, then becoming a pastor. I was this drunk pastor living in shame and telling myself that my story is unique and no one understands. And my greatest fear was to be known. My greatest fear was that one day you would find out who I really am inside. One day you would see all the fears, all the shame, all the resentment, all the anger that I carry. But as a pastor, I would put on this this kind of mask and try to mask it over. And then I'd go home at night and lock myself in a basement and drink myself into oblivion because I hated myself. Getting into sobriety has taught me how to like myself again, which is a big deal, because when you're stuck in that darkness of addiction, man, you don't like who you are. You look in the mirror and you hate what you see. And that's so part of our freedom is not just putting down the drink. I mean, that was a big deal for me. That was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. But it was also learning how to love myself again. And man, that's a journey. That's a journey towards what it means to be free, which is why we call this place, this community, Free Spiritual Community, because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, in my experience, they are all the things that are so freely given by God. So that's what this community is about. And I should also tell you, so the other backstory is while I was a pastor, so I got sober just over 9 years ago. I went public with my story from the pulpit at the church where I was pastoring. And that was about 4 years into my sobriety. And I did so with the help of mentors in my life and a sponsor, and making sure this was a wise move. But I shared my story, and I did it with fear and trembling, and I didn't know how it was going to go, if the congregation was going to turn on me or kick me out. And I shared my story on a Sunday morning that I was a recovering alcoholic. And they supported me and surrounded me with all kinds of grace. But what happened that day was I got home, and by Monday morning, my email box was flooded of people saying, "How'd you put down the bottle?" Or "I've got a brother or sister who's on drugs and losing their life to addiction," or a mom or dad or aunt or uncle. And so I get there the next Sunday, and I'm looking out towards my congregation, and it was like, oh my goodness, you guys are sitting next to each other, but you don't know it because there's such shame and stigma around addiction. And you just kept it so silent, and people are dying. The year we started free, that was in 2018, I did 6 funerals. All except for one of them were under the age of 35, 6 funerals due to drugs or alcohol. And so I looked out in my community and I said, man, we've got a problem. This thing has gone underground and we're not talking about it, especially church people, because we want to act like everything's good and me and Jesus are good and life is good. And you go home and you suffer in silence, which is why our mission is to break the silence of addiction so we can start having this really important conversation, because people are dying.
Mm-hmm. It's just gotten worse since 2 years ago, since the start of the pandemic. I think we were headed in a positive direction, and then the pandemic just kind of derailed everything, just like it did for just about everything. But it's important to hear stories like yours, that you spoke about it and helped uplift people, and you're there helping people, and that's something that I think gets lost when we look at ourselves. Like you said, you started your story, you don't have that sexy, rock bottom, picking yourself up kind of story, but that's not what everybody goes through. That's not what I feel like I went through. That's not what a lot of people feel like happens. So it's important to hear those stories as well. And it's so, like, as men, and I've been talking about this a lot the past couple of weeks, we hide from ourselves because we've been told this fairy tale that life should be maybe not easy, but we should be able to handle everything it throws at us. And we shouldn't talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. It's just life, right? Pick yourself up, put some ice on it, rub some dirt on it, you're fine. That bone sticking out, you'll be able to use it in 2 weeks. You'll be fine. And, hearing your story and, men talking about it, it goes so far. So when you brought up the idea of the free spiritual community, how was that received?
I think it was an easy mission for people to buy into. It was it wasn't disconnected from what people were seeing. And I think there's this sigh of relief, like you said, RJ, with especially for men, because we live in this culture that says you got to be strong, don't show people your feelings, don't shed tears, and strength is a good thing. But what I've found is the strength comes through the weakness. We're strong when we're actually weak. We're strong when we say, I need help. I can't do this on my own. Especially in the religious culture, we hear, oh, God will never give you more than you can handle. And that's BS, man. I've always been faced with more than I can handle. It's what turns me to a spiritual solution. If I can handle it, then I'm still doing life an old way, which is doing it on my own. And so I find that we get strength through our weakness. And so it's a cultural shift. But when you ask how did people receive this idea of free spiritual community, I think there was a lot of people that were excited that we're finally talking about this problem of addiction, and we're adding God into the conversation, a spiritual solution. And also getting addicts and loved ones of addicts together. So those battling addiction and their loved ones, that they can sit in the same space together. We don't have to separate them out. And so there was also this question of, will it work? What's it going to be like? So it always came with this bit of some undergirding anxiety, a healthy anxiety of, I don't know, let's see what happens. And that's how new things work, right? We step into them and we say, all right, let's see how this goes. The whole thing could fail. The whole thing could fall apart, or it could work and it could meet a need in the world. And that's what we did. We just stepped into that kind of fear of saying, let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's as we all know, it's needed. And so you did mention, obviously, that stigma, right? That public stigma that creates that internalized shame that folks experience. My question to you is, how did that impact you? With your journey, with your coming to sort of your enlightenment period of realizing that you obviously have to make a change. Like, how did that stigma, in a sense, prolong that jump?
It prolonged it in a pretty significant way. I just went underground. And like I said, my greatest fear was that one day you would find out who I am. And that's not just finding out that I'm a drunk, that I can't stop. Once I pick up a drink, Ryan doesn't stop. I go until blackout drunk, and I've been that way since my very first drink at 16 years old. But it wasn't just that. It was, what if you guys find out that I don't really like myself? What if you find out that I'm spiritually disconnected? What if you find out that me and God aren't tight? And I'm up preaching on Sunday mornings, because when I was 18, almost 19 years old, which is when my drinking really picked up, my brother was killed in a car accident from this thing of alcoholism. He got clean and sober and he relapsed. That was my first year in college. And in that moment, and I was going to school to be a pastor. I was in a small Bible school up in Michigan. And when I received the news of my brother's death, who was 3 years older than me, my world came crashing down. And I this God that I trusted, man, I hated that God because I saw God as you turned on me. Man, you abandoned our family. This promise of him getting clean and sober and having new life, he's dead now. And where are you? And so I got stuck in this game of blaming God, and hopefully y'all wouldn't figure out that how I looked at God. I didn't trust this God, and yet here I am, a pastor. So I went underground with everything, hiding, hoping you wouldn't figure out who I really am. And what I can tell you is on January 7th of 2013, it was a Monday morning, and I was drunk and passed out on the couch like I always was. And my wife came down the stairs. We had a 2.5-year-old daughter at the time. She's 11 now. She would be hitting me on the head on the couch, thinking I was dead, thinking that Pops had passed away, And my wife came down the stairs that morning, and she was holding an empty bottle of vodka, a bottle I thought I had hidden well enough. I had bottles all over the house. And, Sunday nights were like my Friday nights, So she came down the stairs holding that bottle. And this time she had tears in her eyes. And she said, "What are we going to do?" And it was this really powerful moment for me because she might have said it 1,000 different times, but this time I heard it, that I'm not alone, that she was walking this journey with me. And that was my first day of sobriety, January 7th. I haven't picked up a drink since January 6th of 2013. And that was my road to reaching out. On that day, I cried out. I said, God, I can't do this. And I think that's one of the most beautiful prayers we can offer. I didn't see it on that day, of course. It's not until we look back. But I think God was saying back to me, good. And now we can go some places. Now we can get somewhere. Now that you realize you can't do this journey on your own, because that's how you've been trying to do it. The beauty is getting in community, opening our hearts, vulnerability. And as men, we struggle with that because we're told, don't be vulnerable. Don't let people in here, because if you do that, they're going to turn on you. And my experience is people dig vulnerability, because when we get vulnerable, when we can share our stories and the darkness of it, we give other people permission to go deep into their stories. And so it's this permission giving cycle.
I love that. I love that because it's true, right? And sometimes it's hard, especially, us who are tasked with being the strong ones, because when we show vulnerability, that makes everybody else around us panic. That makes them tell us, no, that's not happening. And that's hard. That's hard to see, because you're trying to be vulnerable and all of a sudden you have to go back because other people can't handle you not being strong. So I teared up when you told me, what your wife said, because that is, it's beautiful, because you say it still feeling that moment, that what are we gonna do? It wasn't what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do? And that's something that a lot of people need to hear. And I'm really listening about your community and listening to you talk. You're really inspirational, because it's not what are you gonna do? It's what are we gonna do? So when people come to the Free Spirit community and they're in a rut, they're stuck along that same wagon path that has the grooves, and they just can't seem to get out of it and stay out of it. How do you show them that it's not you now, it's we? There's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. Our tagline at Free is, we don't do shame. And when we say we don't do shame, I mean, we don't shame you, and we don't do shame in ourselves, because that's the really deadly one.
Yes, it is.
We're generally pretty good about not shaming others. We've learned how to do that. It takes some work to get there, but we can get there somewhat easily. But man, that shame we do to ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. You don't know my past. I hear that all the time. But Pastor, you don't know what I did. And they're expecting me to say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. But instead, what we say is, yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been there. Maybe not the same exact scenario, but yeah, I've hurt people. The people that I love most, I've hurt. My wife, my kids, my family, my mom. Yep, I've done it. And so what we do is we find that togetherness, and we say, just stay put, just hold on, stay in community. And our central image at Free, in fact, it's tattooed on my neck, is a wagon. And we are the wagon. We started in our backyard. We had a little wooden wagon, and it was sitting against a tree, and it was a central image. Now we have a big custom-built wagon at Free. But I tell people the story of the wagon and why we're the wagon together. And the backstory there is when I was at the LA rescue mission. This was a few years back, and it's the largest rescue mission in the world. And I was taking a tour with the executive director, and he took me up to the top floor where all their memorabilia is. And that central picture was this old black and white photo of a wagon. And I said, what's the story with the wagon? He said, you don't know about the wagon. I said, no, but apparently I need to know. And he said, that's how we got started. Late 1800s, they took this wagon into the roughest parts of LA, and they would distribute things like food and clothing and Bibles. And at the end of the night, they would welcome anyone who wanted to get on the wagon to get on, and they would head back to a place of recovery. Now, what happens when a bunch of drunks get on a wagon? Some of them fall off, which just was mind blowing for me. Is that where that phrase comes from? Wagon. And, he said, but this wagon, when the drunks would fall off, the sober ones, they would stop the wagon and they would jump down and pick them back up and get them on the wagon because they knew where they were headed. And man, I took a picture of that photo and I wrote in my notes on my phone, if we ever start a new community, we are going to be the wagon. That's the church at its best, when we can stop the wagon, pick up the fallen, and we don't do shame. We don't say, well, you're not welcome here anymore because you screwed up. The church is known for that. The church is known for kicking the wounded, keeping them out, saying you've got to do this and this and this, and then you can belong. No. We start with belonging first, and we get on the wagon together because we know where we're headed. And so I just emphasize to our community, our people, we do this work together. We do not do it alone. You will fall alone and you won't have anyone to pick you up.
That's pretty cool. I actually like that. I like that a lot. I understand, obviously, the analogy of prior to this, obviously, of what the wagon is and what it symbolizes, of course, but actually listen to somebody sit here and actually thoroughly explain it. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool stuff. So with your community, Ryan, so share with us, what is it like? Well, what is a typical day like when you wake up on a Sunday morning and go in? Like, what is this community already there? You get up, you talk, you share. The people come up on stage with you. Do you guys have breakout rooms to have more intimate conversations with folks who may need a little bit more guidance? I'm very interested.
So Monte, one of the beautiful things is Sundays is my day off, so I get to sleep in on Sundays. And I say that because, in the typical church world, I come from the church world where Sundays was like, it was the Super Bowl every Sunday. We have our service on Saturday nights. And we did that because when I was serving as, like I said, a lead pastor at a different church. And so Sunday mornings was taken. So we started this as a side gig and did it on Saturday nights, which was just kind of a killer for the year and a half we did that at the same time. But we do Saturday nights also because, as you know, people battling addiction, Saturday nights is kind of the time to go to town with how you want to drink or how you want to use. So Saturday nights is we create a safe space. But our service is on Saturday, 7 p.m. in Denver. And I always give about a 20-minute message. We talk about things. We just finished a series on relapse. We're doing now a series on spiritual refugees and what it looks like to create space. We did a series on codependency. So we're trying to talk about the real issues that our people deal with. And so we start with celebrations, because it's really important for our community to lift up the good, sobriety, birthdays, or babies being born, or jobs being gotten. And we celebrate together in community, and we have a big online community, and we include them. So we include the online people as well as the in-house people. And then, like I said, I give a 20-minute message. And then we've done it now since day one. Every single week we have had a guest storyteller that joins me on a stage, because something that drove me kind of crazy about the church world is it's like one pastor, and it's a guy, usually a guy, standing up on stage, and he gets to do all the speaking. And it's like, wait a minute, we have others in this room that have experience, strength, and hope and wisdom to share. So I always bring up a guest storyteller, and I interview them. And we try to keep it related to the topic, but they get to share hope with other people. And it's just been a cool thing. We've had just a guest storyteller every single week. Sometimes it's someone from out of town, but usually it's someone just from the community. So you could hear from your comrades in the journey. And we always end with heartaches. We share those heartaches the same way we do celebrations. And it's really important in our community because we deal with some heavy stuff, relapse, death, moms losing their kids because they picked up a drink again, or dads losing because they picked up a drug. And there's heavy stuff. And again, I remind the community, we don't carry these burdens alone. You weren't made to carry it alone. You suck at trying to carry these things alone. We have to do it together in community. So that's what Saturday nights look like. And there's just people hanging out beforehand and afterhand, especially with opening our coffee shop on site. That's been pretty cool. But we have meetings every day throughout the day, different 12-step meetings or recovery meetings. We do events like sober open mic nights where we just open up the stage for musicians to come showcase their talents,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's always something going on, and we try to partner with other organizations to do some good in the community as well. We're partnering with Holy Kicks at the end of the month to do, they walk with our homeless brothers and sisters in Denver and build relationships with them, and they have programs for them, but they also collect new shoes to give out because shoes end up being pretty important for people who are on the streets all day. So we're doing a shoe drive right now, just trying to give back and do some good in the community.
Yes. Nice.
That's amazing. Not, like I said, building that community so that people aren't alone, that it's we and not I. And that's so powerful in everybody's journey when you feel that you have people that don't judge you, and you don't even know you need it until you experience it, right? And
it's about creating that BS-free zone. When you come into this space, you don't need to put on the mask. You don't need to act like all your ducks are in a row. It's a BS-free zone. Just leave that stuff at the door. Let's come in here and be real and honest and authentic, because people need that. The isolation, the secrets, they're actually killing us.
They are. And, everybody's journey is unique. All of ours we're all similar, but we all have those different paths to take. And that's something that people kind of, some people have problems wrapping their minds around. Like, some people think you need to do 12-step. Some people think you need to, stay away from that. Some people think like you got to go to a rehab center. You have to do this. You have to do that. It's whatever works for you is what works, period. Mm-hmm. And you can add in what you need to. You can take out what you need to. We have one question from the community from Big Kev. He says, in the religious community, when it comes to addiction and mental health, a lot of churches say pray it away. Where do you differ with that? Because, you are putting your hands in. You're not just saying this is something that we could pray away, because that's not life. And I think it's important for people to hear from a pastor and, from this free spiritual community, because you're welcoming one and all. And that's, that's amazing. So I wanted to get that question in there.
Yeah, it's a great question. And usually when religious leaders say things like that, just go pray it away. Just go pray about it. It's our way of saying, we don't want to deal with this. It's actually our way of saying, I'm not equipped to handle this. So just go pray about it. And I don't say that to diminish the power of prayer. I believe very much in prayer. Prayer has saved me. I mean, when I pray the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. That's powerful. When I can repeat that over and over, it has a way of changing me. So prayer does change us. But when we say things like that to people who are suffering, we're saying to them, your problem's not really important here. You go deal with that with God, and let us do our religious stuff over here. And what we have to see is it's all one. Mm-hmm. I mean, the minute we say mental health has nothing to do with my spirituality, well, then we live in this dichotomy of separation. It's all one. And churches have this unique ability, this platform to actually get people together and talk about the issues that are actually affecting us. And Jesus has stuff to say about this all the time when he talks about anxiety, when he talks about surrender. Yeah, these are important things. We can add in the spiritual to this discussion. I think it's all one. Everything is spiritual. But when we say things like that, we're diminishing the pain in our community. And what we have to do is uncover all those layers so we give people the freedom to come into our spaces and actually talk about the stuff that matters. And so now my role as a pastor and executive director is to take that stuff very seriously and keep creating that space to say, no, we're going to talk about that here. We may not have the answers. In fact, I rarely have the answers, but we have all kinds of resources. In fact, at Free, we have a trauma therapist on site that's there 5 days a week that I can give you as a resource. We have community group gatherings. We have different 12-step groups, recovery groups. There's resources. But we've got to be willing to talk about it. We've got to be willing to break the silence and stop saying stuff like that. Just go pray it away. Unhelpful, completely unhelpful.
That's a brilliant model. I like that. Again, you're the congregation, right? Bringing the folks together to tear down the stigma, to share stories, to provide hope, and also sort of building awareness around engagement for the trauma therapist who's on site, right? Make people feel more comfortable just being near folks who specialize in psychiatric care. Obviously helps them to put one step in front of the other to possibly give it a try. That's wonderful. And my question to you, Ryan, is like, did your journey start? Is it just strictly spiritual guidance that helped you along your way? Was there any sort of therapy that you did? Because I did a lot of therapy, a lot of one-on-one therapy, IOP as well, intensive outpatient treatment. And so I'm kind of wondering, was there anything else that you sort of leaned on?
Yeah, a great question. That January 7th, I told Tammy, my wife, I said, honey, you're absolutely right. Something has to change with me. I can't control this thing anymore. And so we had a counselor for marriage counseling that we had seen in previous years. And so I called that counselor and I said, Sue, man, I think I've got a drinking problem and I need help. And she said, Ryan, I'd be happy to see you, but first you have to get involved in some sort of group therapy, some sort of support group. And it just kind of pissed me off. So I hung up the phone because I thought she said no to me. But really what she was saying is it's not a one-on-one thing. Get your secrets out in a group. And then what I found was I'm a big proponent of counseling. Counselors have helped me along the way. They can help me see things that I can't see on my own. And they're an outsider. They have tools and a skill set to talk about these issues that aren't threatening in the sense of I'm just going to shut down. But one thing I did was I found some good, healthy male mentors in my life that I still meet with to this day, that have nothing to do with the 12-step program I'm involved in. They have nothing to do with, they know about recovery, obviously, but men that I trusted that could guide me spiritually, that could guide me in business decisions. And I still use those tools today. So I'm always encouraging men, find other men to walk with that you trust, that can be mentors to you. Because if you've lived a long life of addiction up here, your brain is a little scattered. Don't always trust your brain to make the best decisions, because you might find yourself right back to where you started. So get people around you that you can trust. That's helped me immensely.
That advice is, I can't echo that enough. Like, finding people that you can talk to, not just about, addiction, recovery, sobriety, mental health, but life, and be honest about it. I think that's something that a lot of us lack, where we think that we can talk about life with people that we've been close with, but as soon as we start to broach those subjects, it's like there's a point that people don't want to go past, and that point is pretty much 2 inches right in front of us, and we don't realize it until we start to take that step. That's something that I heard when I really started to make my mindset shift, which really started to happen in November, where I started to identify my deep sense of self-loathing, right? This is like 7.5 years into sobriety, and I didn't realize that I hated myself as much as I did. Like, it was so neutral, and I've talked about this before, that like I just thought that's how I was. And then interaction with my 2 boys, interaction with other people, reading a book about getting a business started and stuff like that. It's like, you know, a mentor who can help walk the path and see things from the outside. Like, that's when I made my most progress in my life, was in high school. I had a mentor for the first time ever, not even realizing that's what they were. And like the beacon that they put up for me to get back to in my darkness, like that's massive. And I really appreciate that you put that message out there, that, you know, you can find other men, you can find other people to walk this life with you. And that's really the community that you're creating. When you mentioned that people are online, do you guys do Zoom? Do you do other ways to get connected? You know, how can people go about getting into the community? And we're not wrapping up yet, but I want to talk about this right now, because I'm very interested to hear what made you think to include. Was it just the pandemic, or you know, and then how people can also, you know, just support?
Yeah. You know, the pandemic was, of course, this awful thing in the world. And like with any tragedies, there's always these kinds of good things that can happen because of it. And one of the things it did was it gave us the sense of urgency to be online, because we were looking at these statistics you mentioned earlier, what happened in the pandemic. It gave people who are already prone to isolation, it gave them permission to stay isolated. And what we know with people battling mental health and addiction, that is a deadly combination. Isolation kills us. So we kind of went into this panic urgent mode of how do we stay connected? So we went online. We started live streaming through our Facebook page and YouTube channel. We also have a platform called Subsplash, which we stream through. And what that did is we started hearing comments from all over the country of, man, we need a free in our city. How come no one else is doing this? Hey, how do we start this in our town? So we are right now, I am in the midst of, we're actually just put a team together, and we're having a mentor come in and a consultant come in and help us think through what does it look like to create different frees in the country, so that we can keep breaking the silence of addiction together, because it's such a big problem, and there's such beauty in tackling that problem together. But to answer your question simply, yeah, we live stream on Facebook and YouTube, and we have people from literally all over the country that join in, and some of them have gotten little groups together in a living room or their sober living house. We have sober living houses join in, and they just tune in each Saturday. And what I hear from them is they've never stepped foot, they've never been to Denver, they've never come into the doors of Free, but they say that Free is their community, it's their tribe, their people. And that's a new thing for me. I'm not used to that yet, of people saying this is my people and we've never met. But this kind of mysterious thing happens when we just open up those channels, and you know, spirit starts moving. And what we found is we're profoundly interconnected through oftentimes through the binding of suffering. It has a way of connecting us, suffering and hope.
Absolutely. That's pretty cool stuff, man. That's very interesting. That's got to feel good. Come on, man. You gotta give yourself more pats on the back. That's got to feel amazing. right? You got people all across the country you've never met who's hopping on a Zoom and with their family watching what you all are doing in Denver, and you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah,
You're doing it.
It's a sacred thing to be a part of it. And I always tell people, because I have people come to me a lot saying, hey, I want to start this new thing. Can you help me? And what do I need to be aware of? And man, I always say, if you're starting a new thing, one, is it a calling? Is it a passion? Do you have a love for it? And if you do, there's an old lie out there that says if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I always say, oh, please, you will work way harder.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it'll be worth it. It'll be that kind of good work. And you will be scared along the way because you're taking a step into the unknown. And man, I had this comfortable job of being one of the lead pastors in the suburbs of Denver. It was comfortable. Things weren't bad. Things were actually good. And so I remember when a guy pulled me aside and said, are you sure you want to leave all this to go start that in your backyard? I mean, 10 people were coming, 12 people. Are you sure you want to leave this for that? You don't know if it's going to work. And I say, of course you don't know if it's going to work, but how do we know if we don't try? The only thing worse than not doing it or than doing it is to not do it. So it comes with all kinds of fear. And it also comes with the deepest joy I've ever experienced, because me and my wife, we do this thing together. We started it together. And it's hard. I mean, especially in our community, we deal with a lot of pain and a lot of disappointment, to be honest with you. But we also see lives coming back. Last night, there was a child who stood up and celebrated his dad being sober again. And so I hear that and I'm like, man, here's a 10-year-old kid saying he gets his dad back, and we get to be a part of that. So when you can look at your work in the world and say, man, I get to do this. I mean, that's where the sweet spot is. Not, man, I have to wake up and go to work, but man, I get to do this. I wonder what's going to happen today. I wonder where God's going to move today. How do I get to be a part of it? Where's healing going to be taking place? And how do I get to step into it? It's a sweet spot.
Great explanation, man. Wonderful.
It's when you meet and hear people who are inspirational, right? It's not just motivating, but it helps you find your aspirations. It helps unlock, right? Like you said, when you look into that mirror and you see hope, there's suffering just behind you. That's really where hope lies, is in front of the suffering. But, unfortunately, just like a lot in life, you can't have one thing without the other. You can't, the world is not black and white. It's varying degrees of gray. And I know people are sick of hearing me say that, but that's the truth. That's where it is. It's just, it's one of those things that I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm getting motivated and I'm getting inspired. And that is what we need. That is this all inclusive. It's not just about the spirit. It's about the mind. It's about the body. It's about all of it coming together. Like you said, it's all interconnected. Just like families, just like everything, you got to be your best self to be your best father, to be the best partner, to be the best worker, whatever it is. And that is where the inspiration is when you see somebody being their best selves. It helps you want to be your best self. And that's really why we started Untapped Keg, was to let people know they're not alone. So to see all of this work that you're doing coming to fruition is also it's amazing, and reaching out and doing stuff. So with all of the free spiritual community and starting it in your backyard, how has that impacted your family life? Because it sounds like you started it together. It sounds like you are all in on this together, and that's powerful. That's strong. That's amazing. That's incredible, and I want to hear about it.
Yeah, and I do say that, Tammy and I, We celebrated our 17-year anniversary on last Thursday.
Woo! And 17. Congratulations.
Married as babies. I was 23, she was 22. And it's always a sacred day for me because I know what a gift it is. I know the mess that I brought into our marriage with addiction. And so to look and see what we have now, it's a sacred day. It's a powerful reminder of the things that can be restored in recovery, the things that are taken from addiction. But when we started in 2018, we just opened up our backyard we said we were going to do 4 weeks to see if there was interest in a conversation in God and recovery. So we started that on our second week. This was June of 2018. Tammy called me. I was at my office. She said, "You need to come home." And the way she said it, I thought someone had died. And I said, "Who died?" And she said, No, it's the opposite. And I said, "Oh, crap." We had 3 kids at the time. We thought we were done. She got pregnant. I have 3 blessings tattooed on my hand here. So I had to add a little +1. I don't know if you can see it. We were stopping at 3 kids and we had 4. And so you asked how it impacted our family life. And it was hard. It's still hard, to be honest with you, because I was serving as a lead pastor and then starting this side thing that I thought was just going to be 4 weeks. And at the end of the 4 weeks, people were like, "We can't stop now. I mean, what are we doing next week?" And I'm like, I don't know. Well, I didn't plan next week. And we took 1 month off and we looked for space to begin renting. And this beautiful space there's a whole backstory there, but we got this beautiful space that just fell in our lap. And so for 1.5 years, I was serving as a lead pastor at another church and I was starting free, and Tammy and I were doing it together. But it was hard, man. It took a toll on us. But again, when you're doing the thing you feel called to, the thing that's like deep inside your bones, it has a way of giving you this kind of renewed energy where I think like God's saying, just keep going. I got you. Just keep taking another step, one day at a time. That's all you need to worry about. And if you jump too far in the future, if you start future tripping, man, you might as well give up because it's a mess. You can never know what's going to happen in the future. But it was hard. But what I see now is the gift of Tammy and I love working together. We get to go into free every day. She roasts the coffee. She employs women in recovery. She is sending beans all over the country. She's in 58 sober living houses now. She's in different coffee shops in Denver and different donut shops and restaurants. And she gets to do her thing. I'm doing my thing, and we get to do it together. And our kids, they become part of that. We bring them, we load up all 4 kids and we take them into free, and they act like they own that space sometimes. I got to put boundaries and rules down. But I'd be lying to you if I said it was easy, man. We've had to create boundaries. Again, going back to counseling, when things were the very best with free and her coffee, which she calls wagon coffee, we noticed some tension in our marriage, and we were like passing ships. And so we said, we've been here before. We've been doing this thing for 17 years. We've been in these ruts before. We need outside perspective. So we started going to counseling, and it's amazing how much that does. It's why I always tell people counseling is good. Go to counseling.
Right.
There's professionals who are trained with this, who can help you see the things you cannot see. And we had to go back to the basics of marriage is about sacrificing for one another. It's about making sure each other feels valued and heard and understood, and that you're actually listening to that. And sometimes Ryan has to actually sit down and say, "Baby, how you feeling? Like, tell me how. I want to hear it." And these are simple tools, but I can't get there on my own. I will never be able to get there on my own. I always have to have someone show me how to do it and remind me how to do it. Then I can get there. But it's been a beautiful journey, man. Again, it's the gift. And I had this real powerful transformation that came with my sobriety of One of my friends told me, you have to wake up each day and start with gratitude. And I thought, that's just too stupid and simple. I don't even know what that means. And now I get it. You start with what you don't have, or you start with what you have rather than what you don't have, because it's too easy to wake up and say, well, I don't have this, and I didn't go to that school, and I don't have this money, and I don't have this. And when you just start with, man, I get to wake up this morning and be with my family. I get to go into a community that I love. I get to. It transforms my thinking and gives me a new perspective of the world. And it happens. I have to do it every day. I can't just do it every so often. I have to start that way daily.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I really enjoy about the spirituality journey. It's, not only are you learning so much about, obviously, energy, that energy exists, how to control it, how to manifest it, and obviously about Jesus. It's so meditative. It really is. You're literally transforming your brain, rewiring certain disconnects, and being able to control your thoughts, right? The power of now, understanding that you control right now. Stop dwelling on the past. Stop being anxious about the future. Take care of right now. And so that's something that I thoroughly enjoy. And so you briefly touched on it, man. The coffee, free cafe, right?
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to try this stuff. I actually had the wagon coffee, right? So am I?
Well, so Free Cafe is part of Free Spiritual Community. And then Wagon Coffee, which is Tammy's roasting business, she roasts her beans inside of Free Spiritual Community, but it's actually a separate thing. But Free Cafe serves Wagon Coffee.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I had the opportunity to try this. I had the peanut butter flavored coffee, the white beans, right?
White coffee. Yeah.
The white coffee. And my goodness, I'm going to let you chat here, of course, but that stuff packs a punch. I'm talking like I was wired in a really good way for a very long time, but I'd love for you to share that, man. How did you guys come about with that?
Yeah, just to
sorry, I got this gnat in here. Sorry.
Let your listeners know the white coffee Monte is referring to is it's called white coffee. It's roasted at a lesser amount of time, a lower temperature, and so it comes out with a really nutty flavor. It comes out, people either love it or hate it usually, but it's got 70% more caffeine, so that's why you get that little wired feeling. So I tell people don't drink it at night. Go easy on it. But it's really good with the flavored creamer in it. So if you got some chocolate flavored creamer, it's super good that way. Anyway, and I'm speaking for my wife, Tammy here. She was in the corporate coffee world for 18 years. And she stepped out of that when we had our third child. And so when we started Free, I just knew in recovery how important coffee was. Like, give people a warm cup of coffee, something to do with their hands, because some of them come in shaking, and coffee's just like this comfort, it's a comfort. And so she bought a little home coffee roaster. It was about this big, and she was roasting 1 pound every 6 hours to serve at our Saturday night gatherings. And so she just came up with this vision, and she called it Wagon Coffee to be in alignment with our central image. And she said, hey, I'm going to get this bigger roaster, and we're going to start, I'm going to help women in recovery, because women in recovery, many of them, they get a DUI or they get in some legal trouble, and they have a much harder time finding employment than men do. And so she said, I want to employ women in recovery. And she just went big with it. She got investors and started roasting coffee on a bellwether. I was explaining a bellwether to RJ before you jumped on, Monte. But the bellwether is like the Cadillac of coffee roasters. It's she gets beans from all over the world. She knows where these beans are coming from, which farm, she knows how these farmers are treated, how what they're getting paid, that they're getting a sustainable living. So it's all clean energy. We are a clean coffee shop, clean energy. And she's totally rocking it. You go into, we call it her wagon room inside of Free. There's just coffee beans and big bags everywhere. And we both have been given this tremendous gift of we get to do the thing we love, and somehow we get to do it together. So she took her love. She's always loved coffee, and she's always loved people. And so she got to put those gifts together, and I get to see my wife just totally rock it. You know, she's in her sweet spot. She's in the groove, and you ride that wave, you know, that waves don't last forever, but you ride that wave when they come, and she's doing it, man. And I get to drink dang good coffee along the way.
A little benefit that is nice, right? So Ryan, as we're gonna start wrapping up here, you know, what would you like to leave people with about your story?
I'd say get honest, and vulnerability is really scary. If you get vulnerable, it will be the scariest thing you ever do. And the truth is, people can turn on you. People can hurt you. People could say, they could do a jaw dropper and say, "Oh, I didn't know that." And somehow they'll turn on you. You'll disappoint them. And yet, vulnerability, in my experience, is always worth it. It's never not worth it. The outcomes far outweigh the bad thing with vulnerability. And in my experience, most people won't turn on you. Most people, you'll find you'll actually get closer to, because you are giving them permission to get vulnerable with their story, to share things they've never shared, to go to the darkness that they've never visited. And the only way we get to the light is if we're willing to go through the darkness. We can't go over it. We can't go around it. We can't go under it. We have to go right through that darkness. And don't do it alone. You're not equipped to do it alone. Do it with other people. You will find so many gifts along the way when you make an intentional decision to journey with other people and to let other people in. And I say it like it's easy. It's not. If you're not used to it, it'll be the hardest work you do. It'll be a brand new road, and it's worth it. It's worth it because there's freedom on the other side. You will be unlocking a world you didn't know existed, and you'll discover this sense of God, spirit, universe, whatever you call it, doing for you what you could never do for yourself. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
Powerful, man. Inspiring, very inspiring. You have one heck of a story, and thank you. I'm grateful, very, very grateful. I don't want to speak for RJ, of course I'll give him the opportunity, but I'm so grateful to have had you on to share this. It's uplifting, right? Gonna be going to do some yard work here soon, and I'm just excited, right? I just having the opportunity, right? I was dreading it when I woke up earlier this morning, but now it's like, wait, I have the opportunity to walk, to work, to be free. And so I thank you.
You get to go mow that lawn.
Right. Yeah. Instead of dwelling on that stuff or not dwelling in a sense, just dreading it. It's a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And so thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
So to rehash before we get out of here, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
You can visit our website. All my contact info is on there, freespiritualcommunity.com. You can check us out on social media at Free Spiritual Community, both on Facebook and Instagram, also on YouTube, Free Spiritual Community. We try to keep it simple for y'all. Same handles everywhere. So we'd love to connect with you. And if I can be a resource in any way, I've learned the value of to keep the gift, you got to give the gift away. So it's all about helping others. That's how we experience a gift.
That's so true. And you know, the finding a mentor too, like, I cannot express that enough. Find somebody who is willing to take their gift and pass it on so that you can do the same thing, because that's something that to cherish as well. And in the show notes, we do have the social media links. We have the website so that you can click that and follow that. Give Free Spiritual Community a follow. You know, send a message and let Ryan know how amazing, you know, the amazing work he's doing and how he inspired you. Mons, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at MonteBall28, Instagram MonteBall, obviously, our Untapped Keg pages as well. Shoot us questions, topics, what you want to see. We'll most definitely get back to you. RJ, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at It's Trickster, ITZ. The I is the one in Trickster. And then, as Mont said, Untapped Keg everywhere. Our DMs are open. If you're struggling, reach out. We'll help you find resources. If you need to talk, I got 2 ears, and they listen pretty well. And, find us on all podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button so you know when an episode goes live. Leave us a review. Share the podcast with anybody you think who could use some inspiration. And, find us on YouTube, youtube.com/untappedkeg. Take a look at what we got there, because, it's not just us telling you about this journey. It's you being able to walk it with us and seeing how we are also doing on our journey. And like Ryan says, we don't sugarcoat it. We show the struggles as well, because the struggles are real, and that's life. And I just want to thank you for coming on, Ryan, and for everything that you are doing in Denver and the nation with your community, and opening it up to everybody and helping others to be motivated.
Thank you guys for having me. You're doing a cool thing here, so keep doing it.
Appreciate that.
Man.
So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Everybody, you have a great week. I love you, and let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today, because at least if we don't make it, we tried. See ya.